Oh, so the second part in this two-part feedback would be about training visas. This is very interesting that you guys really spent so much time discussing them because I really didn't think about this option basically at all. Because my thinking was that the company is looking for an employee. There's no indication that they want to spend their time training somebody who would not be allowed to be involved in productive employment, and therefore it's not an option for the company. They need an employee, not a trainee. So that was my take on it. But reading your post, I really started thinking that maybe it would be something that should be brought up to the company's attention. It clearly would not solve their issue. Like if we obtain a J1 or theoretically an H3 for Ms. Link, she would not be able to just, take over the bookkeeping function and just, work as a bookkeeper with these visas. Um, that would be a violation. That would be, almost like a fraud, and we do not condone that. We This is not to say that it never happens in real life. That yes, sometimes companies do sponsor people for training visa and then end up just employing them. And they can actually legally pay them a certain wage. Doesn't have to be anything specific. They can pay a stipend, which could be like a low salary. But as an attorney, as a practitioner, I would never advise that. But maybe it is worth investigating if Abacus would be willing to actually support a training program, because there would be a benefit for Ms. Link, who would be working and learning and staying in the United States, and it could be somewhat beneficial for the company because, as part of her training, she can perform certain functions of a bookkeeper as long as someone reviews and revises and trains her in these functions. Some of the product of her work could be actually used by the company. So yes, I don't think it's the ideal option, but it may be something that should be explored. At least the client should know of this possibility. And you guys convinced me of that. And so now we have to think about two training visas that we discussed, an H3 or a J1 as a trainee. All other J1s she would not be eligible for. Some of you suggested a J1 as a student. It's a totally different, that would be different fact pattern. Maybe she can get a J1 as a student, but it's not in the facts. We don't know. And she's not eligible as an intern because intern J1s are for people who are currently in school, and that would bring us to her foreign education, her American education, American degree. American students are not eligible for J1, so she cannot get a J1 intern based on her studies at SUNY Albany. But J1 trainee is a little bit different story because she has over 5 years of experience in Singapore. I mentioned in my comments that J1s J1 trainees are for professionals, same as H1B basically, like not exactly the same, but a similar standard. So to make her eligible, we would once again have to look at her prior experience and see if it qualifies as professional experience. You know, if it's experience as purely as a bookkeeper, then J1 is not an option. If it is experience in something more, you know, finance management or business management type of occupation, maybe. And again, the training that you would be receiving would have to be, you know, in the same professional occupation. The company would have to commit to a training program, so we would have to lay out the plan of training for the duration of the program. It could be up to 18 months, and the company would have to follow it. They would have to work with a J1 sponsor who would monitor the progress of the training. And you know, as an attorney, I would have to advise them that, you know, if they write a training program, if they commit to provide training, they have to do it. They cannot just have her work as a bookkeeper. So this is a J1, a very long shot. I don't know if that would be approved by a J1 sponsor, but, you know, something that might be worth further discussion and further investigation. H3, I don't think there's a chance, because it's a different type of visa, it's a different type of training. We would have to prove, that, you know, there are like a bunch of things that you need to prove, but the most glaring issues that I see with an H3 is that we have to show that the training is not available in her home country. Clearly, she worked as a bookkeeper. She, you know, bookkeeping training would be available probably pretty much anywhere where people do business and take money for their services. And you know, the argument some of you proposed is that she would learn American style of bookkeeping. But then the issue is how is it relevant to her career abroad? So we cannot just say that she wants to learn American bookkeeping and then go back home to Singapore and work there as a bookkeeper. That makes no sense. And this is the requirement for an H3 visa. We have to show that this training would be relevant to her career abroad, would advance her career abroad. So, you know, again, you know, there could be an argument that it would help her find a job in Singapore for a company that works with America in some capacity, but that's too much of a stretch, too hypothetical. You know, if you know, if let's say Abacus would have an affiliate in Singapore and would bring Ms. Ling to America to get trained, and then would send her back to that Singapore affiliate doing some, you know, bookkeeping for international transactions, that would be an entirely different story, and it would be actually a good case. But that's not what we have in our facts. So that's why I would rule out H3. So those are the, you know, the only relevant visas that I identified. Again, thank you very much for excellent discussion. And the next few weeks, I think, will be much easier because at least we'll have, you know, one visa per week, and the fact patterns are, in my opinion, more straightforward. There are still some hidden issues here and there, but I hope that you will continue enjoying this exercise, but will probably spend a little